What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the reveal of number 19 in my power rankings. Coming in here is the Washington Redskins, and this is a team I am very, surprisingly so, excited to watch this Redskins team this year. I really like what this team has done this offseason, and they might not be the flashiest team or the team that's going to come away as one of the leading storylines. In fact, they probably won't even make the playoffs, but this team is going throwback. They are going to punch you in the mouth, play tough up front. They're going to fly around on defense. And even if they don't come away with a win, you know that that team is going to be sitting in the hotel that night with an extra order of ice packs. So that's what this video is going to be all about, is running through this roster, hopefully talking about some players you weren't aware of here, and why this really is going to be a fun throwback team this year that's going to be really competitive in almost every single game, and no one's going to look forward to playing this Washington Redskins team. So we're going to break this down, grade each position, and then we'll get into the schedule, really hit in on my expectations and predictions for this team. So let's start off with the quarterback here, Alex Smith. Of course, this team getting rid of their quarterback, Kirk Cousins. And there is a very split opinion here. And when they first made this move, it really didn't make sense. But when I saw the direction that this team wanted to go with the rest of their moves in free agency and the draft, this all made sense, because while Kirk Cousins and Alex Smith are very close as far as my quarterback rankings are concerned, in fact, they come in right next to each other, and I kind of go back and forth with these two. As far as what they offer your football team, it could not be any different, because Kirk Cousins is this fluctuating player, bipolar, if you will. On his best days, you get a top 10 quarterback, but on his worst days, he's a guy that can lose you games by turning the ball over, being inconsistent, and can be one of the worst quarterbacks that week. And I think that was just kind of draining on this team. They looked at this roster and said, we need a more consistent quarterback, and Alex Smith, honestly, is the perfect fit here. I don't think this team could have found a better quarterback in this offseason to run this team. Because like I mentioned, they want to play physical football. They want to run the ball. They have a good offensive line and a running back that we'll talk about. Alex Smith is going to open things up with that mobility on play action. Always helps out the run game. He's not going to turn the ball over as consistently as Kirk Cousins. So this defense is going to have a better fighting chance. So I really like the move for Alex Smith. Now, depending on how you view him coming off of last season, where he really broke out in that Kansas City offense that was very quarterback friendly. Now, this is what I will say about Alex Smith. And you guys know I don't overreact to 1 year. We cannot ignore, frankly, 8 years of Alex Smith being a subpar at best deep thrower, where he was analytically off the charts last year. You know, it's one thing to say that, you know, statistically and analytically, he was really good getting the ball downfield last year. And I do think he had a mentality shift that is going to carry over at least somewhat. I do think he's better than he's ever been. But you could see even in that playoff game, throwing a 20-yard out route is still a difficult thing for Alex Smith. He just doesn't have the physical ability to command the ball around the field. So you do lose that element with Kirk Cousins, but you do add other things as well with Alex Smith. And then you got Colt McCoy in here as the backup, and Kevin Hogan. Not really much to say there, but they do come in tied with one other team for 15th in the league at quarterback. So then let's move on and talk about these running backs. So coming off of last year, they have this kind of balanced room. You got Rob Kelly there, Fat Rob. You got Samaje Perine, who showed some decent things, but really didn't emerge as a very good running back here, to be honest. Has a ton of physical ability, just didn't necessarily translate as a rookie. But then in the draft, they take Darius Geis, who is the absolute perfect fit for the culture here and what this team wants to do. I think Darius Geis is going to be one of the best rookies in the NFL this year. This was one of my favorite picks in the entire draft. He gets to run behind a really good offensive line, and just everything he brings to the table with that physical running style is going to be a perfect fit here. And then to complement that, you have Chris Thompson, who can hopefully bounce back from a pretty grueling leg injury. I'm hoping that he can come back and reestablish himself as one of the 2 or 3 best receiving backs in the NFL. Frankly, last year, before the injury, certainly an argument to be made that he was the best receiving running back in the league. at least a receiving specialist taking out like Le'Veon Bell. But if that can't happen, this team did add Martez Carter in free agency. I had him as one of my 50 or so sleepers in this entire class, so do keep an eye on Martez Carter if Chris Thompson can't recover from that injury. Capri Bibbs and Keith Marshall on this team as well. I don't expect those guys to make this team. So overall, an upgrade to the running back room this offseason. They do still come in at 23rd. We'll have to wait and see how great Darius Geis can be, though I do think that is going to increase as the year goes on. So let's talk about these receivers. And you go back 2 or 3 years when this team had Pierre Garçon, Deshaun Jackson, a healthy Jordan Reed. This was one of the best receiving corps in the entire league. And things have fallen off here because Jordan Reed continues to fail to stay healthy. And he's factored in here to this receiving corps, but you know, I certainly am not expecting him to play 16 games, but if you can get 10 to 12, that is certainly a win for this team. Jordan Reed, one of the best offensive weapons in the entire league. So obviously, if he can stay healthy, this grade of 24th does obviously go up. As far as the actual receivers are concerned, they bring in Paul Richardson. I think he's going to be pretty much exactly what he was in Seattle. I'm not really buying him as this like fantasy breakout guy that's going to be any sort of consistent. I think he's just here to keep defenses honest, be that deep threat that you don't necessarily get in the other guys on this team. Some of the defenses are going to have to account for, but as far as his actual production, you know, he's going to have big weeks here or there, but I'm just not really seeing a breakout from Paul Richardson. Kind of is what he is, in my opinion. And then you got Josh Doxson, still has not established himself, and I didn't love him coming out as much as most people did, but has shown flashes when he's been able to get on the field. This is going to be a very telling year for Doxson if he can be the number one receiver here, or if this team needs to look elsewhere. Surprisingly good catch and run guy for his size, obviously has the ability to go up and get it. I just need to see him separate more and just overall have some consistency. Then you got Jamison Crowder in the slot, that's great. Brian Quick, Maurice Harris here, Robert Davis, a 6th round pick. They do pick up Simmie Cobbs Jr. in undrafted free agency. That will be a theme here. We already talked about Martez Carter. This team seemingly signed all of my favorite undrafted free agents in this entire group of UDFAs. Simmie Cobbs definitely on that list. They do take Trey Quinn as well. So they have some depth here, to be honest. So it will be interesting to monitor this. Obviously, not all these guys can make the team. If Simmie Cobbs makes it, kind of a poor man's Allen Robinson, just doesn't necessarily have the top end speed, but everything else is a similar attribute for Simmie Cobbs. So do keep an eye on him if he does make this team. And then you get to the offensive line, which is the best part of this offense. They rank 7th in terms of offensive line for me. So you got Trent Williams at left tackle, still one of the best 2 or 3 offensive tackles in the game today, and he needs to stay healthy. Battled a lot of stuff last year. His grades were down a little bit as far as PFF were concerned, but he was playing injured, so I do expect him to resume as this dominant left tackle that he is. You got Sean Laval at left guard. He's been kind of a mainstay. You're going to have some turnover at center here as Spencer Long is on his way out, so it's going to be Chase Roullier. Most likely there should be some competition in there, but 6th round pick last year, likely to be the starting center here, so that's definitely a question mark. Then you got Brandon Sheriff, one of the best guards in the entire game at right guard. Definitely fits this badass, punch you in the mouth type of culture you got here. I'm a big fan of Brandon Sheriff. Just might be the best run blocking guard in the league. And then Morgan Moses, who his ratings dropped off last year in terms of pass protection, but still very good. Still blocked the run very well last year, so I'd expect him with a healthy offensive line to resume his stay as one of the 5 or 6 best right tackles in the game. So a very good offensive line here. Definitely going to help this team run the ball, going to probably be the best line Alex Smith's ever had, at least in his Kansas City days. Maybe you could argue that one of those 49ers lines was better, but really across the board, this is a solid offense. They come in 18th overall. Now, if they can stay healthy, if Jordan Reed can stay healthy specifically, things could really start to click here. You got a ton of depth, and this offensive line, of course, is going to help this team do a lot of things that they want to accomplish. So this could certainly be better than 18th when all is said and done, but some new pieces in play here. We're going to have to wait and see how it all plays out. So let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. Now, they do come in 22nd, for defense. So there's going to be some times where this is a really good looking defense, sometimes where some holes here get exploited. But overall, I think it's just a really fun defense to watch this year. They had some elements of physicality last year. They suffered a lot of injuries, but you could really see some of the players here really emerging as probably just short of superstar caliber. And across the entire board for this team, offense and defense, outside of Josh Norman, this team doesn't really have any superstars, which is probably why a lot of people aren't excited about this Redskins team. But they got a bunch of dudes that just want to come in and ball out, hit you in the mouth, and play football. So let's start with the run defense and mainly this D line. So you got Jonathan Allen, who did get hurt last year before he could really establish himself as one of the best rookies in the league last year, which is what he was playing as. And then you pair what he was able to do with the breakout, and I mean breakout, of Matt Ioannidis that nobody was talking about. He comes in and plays as one of the best interior defensive linemen in the entire league last year. And then to that, you add Daron Payne in the first round, addressing a strength in the first round. So I like that. And then they get a steal in Tim Settle. Dude's built like BJ Raji. He has those really quick feet. He's got like tiny ankles for a guy his size. So I'm excited to watch him, see how that translates. Definitely shows some explosion off the ball that could definitely generate some things for this defense. And you also got Stacy McGee, Ziggy Hood here, Anthony Lanier. So it's a super good front seven. Now, they actually, once you had that injury to John Allen, this defense did struggle against the run last year, but I do think it's going to be much improved. They do come in at 15th, but they could absolutely, when all is said and done, be a top 5 to 10 run defense. Also got to mention Zach Brown, one of the best run defending linebackers in the league, and then Mason Foster as well. So potential to be an extremely tough team to run against, and I think that is what's going to end up happening. And then you talk about the pass rush here. Ryan Kerrigan is the number one guy here. I go back and forth on him on if he is one of those true elite number one edge rushers or if he is a very, very good number two. Hopefully this year, if this front seven can stay healthy, we will get an answer to that question. Definitely has the upside of one of the 10 or so best edge rushers in the league. Then you've also got a ton of depth here. Preston Smith, they do let Trent Murphy go, but that's fine. They bring in Pernell McPhee to kind of replace what they got from Junior Galette last year as a rotational edge. McPhee, a signing I really liked to fit all of this physical culture stuff that I'm talking about. He's getting older, but a dude that big should not be that quick and strong. It's really just unfair. I thought he was completely underutilized in Chicago. Kind of a weird scheme fit for him. And again, he is coming into a 3-4 scheme yet again. Will be interesting to see if he kind of plays more down lineman in this new team or if he's going to continue to be sort of that outside linebacker. Strangely high cover ratings for Pernell McPhee. Kind of a weird player, but a player that this team could do some interesting things with. So it's a really good, deep group of edge rushers. But again, I don't know if they have a number one edge or not in Ryan Kerrigan. They do rank 79, which is tied with one other team for 17th. And then you talk about these linebackers here. Now, this is a very good group of linebackers as far as defending the run is concerned. And Zach Brown is going to fly around the field and light you up. But as far as coverage is concerned, Zach Brown has never been consistent in coverage. And he has all the physical ability to do it. But as far as I understand, the problem with Zach Brown is a lot of people would wonder how a guy that athletic can struggle in coverage. It really comes down to understanding route concepts, breaking down plays, being in the right place at the right time. It doesn't matter how fast you are if you're 2 steps out of position. No one has the physical ability to make up for that. So that really is what it comes down to Zach Brown. I've also heard that he will literally just ignore his assignment and do what he thinks is right, and more often he guesses wrong. I haven't personally noticed that on film. That's just something I think I heard from Mike Lombardi on a podcast, but I do believe it because his PFF coverage grades have really been pretty bad throughout his career. And the ability to cover consistently, in my opinion, is more important in today's NFL than, being a tackle backer. and stuffing the run. But Zach Brown does offer a very good physical element to this defense. Just want to see him cover better. They do take Sean Dion Hamilton in the 6th round. Interesting player out of Alabama, a little undersized, but was used as one of those hybrid linebackers at Alabama. Now, he could be a guy that comes in and is a cover linebacker on 3rd round to make up for some of the weaknesses that the other guys here have. Also, keep an eye on Josh Harvey-Clemens, 7th round pick last year, converted safety type, also has a lot of upside as a cover backer. So overall, they come in 18th as far as linebackers are concerned. Then let's get into this secondary, where they come in tied with 4 other teams for 22nd. So it's a solid secondary. Now, I'm a huge Josh Norman fan. I still think this physical element of this team runs from Jonathan Allen out to the secondary with Josh Norman. There is no corner in this league better in run defense, in my opinion. He has that rare ability that Peanut Tillman had. I would actually argue Josh Norman is even more instinctive than Tillman ever was at punching the ball out, forcing turnovers. Is he a lockdown, true number 1, top 5 cover corner? Probably not. He's better in zone than man, but is just so smart out there. I'm a big fan of Josh Norman. Then they bring in Orlando Scandrick. He's going to play in the nickel here. And then Quentin Dunbar, who showed some things last year, a little ups and down, but probably the best year of his career coming off of last year. So you could do a lot worse between those corners. They do have Fabian Morale, 3rd round pick last year. He's probably still in the developmental stage of his career, but there's a chance he could win one of these starting jobs in camp. Came in as a raw corner out of UCLA with a lot of upside. Last year, a historic class of rookie corners. So I wouldn't rule out Fabian Morale to be sort of a bit of a breakout candidate this year. We'll see. And you got Joshua Holsey, Greg Stroman, a couple 7th round picks. And then they signed Danny Johnson, another undrafted free agent that I really like here. I had something like a 3rd or 4th round grade on him, just a super instinctive nickel corner. And while last year's corner class was extremely deep in terms of cover guys, this is one of the deepest classes I can remember of those versatile nickel defenders. Danny Johnson was right there with some of the best ones in this class. A lot of them fell outside of the draft. So if Danny Johnson competed with Orlando Scandrick in the nickel and actually beat him out, stranger things have happened. A lot of corners have made their name for themselves, undrafted corners, by starting in that nickel position. Last year, Mike Hilton, Kenny Moore for the Colts. You could go way back and even bring up like Chris Harris in Denver. It does seem that a good chunk of the best nickel corners in this league come into the league undrafted, which is kind of interesting. And then you look at the safeties here, really intriguing group as well. And all of these guys really fit that physical element to this team. So on all 3-4 levels of this defense, you've just got some real badass players. So you start with DJ Swearinger here, who's been under the radar as one of the better safeties in this league, especially going back to last year. Now, you go back to his Texans, Arizona days, the guy has consistently developed every year from the bottom. Like, he was really bad in Houston. I thought he showed a little more consistency in Arizona, and now he is really setting up as at least above average starter at safety in this league. He's always had the physical ability, but really struggled in coverage until last year, where he showed he was much better. And then he's always had that ability to come up and just light you up. One of the bigger hitters in this league. And then I'd be remorsed and attacked by Redskins fans if I didn't mention Monte Nicholson. Was a big fan of this pick last year. Coming out of Michigan State, I compared him to Adrian Amos, who I liked coming out of 2 years drafts ago. A guy that is probably a better straight line runner than a more lateral quickness kind of dude, which is why he's playing safety, but he is a huge hitter. He's pretty instinctive in coverage and is going to continue to get better. If he took an Adrian Amos sized leap this year, like Amos did for the Bears last year, would not be the least bit surprised. I think Nicholson has all that talent, versatile safety, so keep an eye on him next to DJ Swearinger. And then another one of my favorite picks in this draft, Troy Apke out of Penn State, goes in the 4th round. I had a late 2nd round grade on this dude. I mean, you want to talk about like manufactured in a lab in Germany type of athleticism. Look at Troy Apke's combine numbers, off the freaking grid. But for a guy that athletic, it's not like his film was so bad. And the fact that he is the 3rd, maybe even 4th safety, is that they got DeShazor Everett here, I don't really have any opinions on. he's going to be a guy that's going to develop here, and I could absolutely see him showing flashes that they say we need to find a way to get this guy on the field. You know, as far as his upside is concerned, I don't see a reason why he couldn't be like a Landon Collins, Harrison Smith type of dude. So keep an eye on Troy Apke. And then they get Quinn Blanding in undrafted free agency as well. You know, I'm sorry, fans of other teams, that I didn't mention a lot of undrafted free agents for your teams like I'm doing for this Redskins team. But seriously, you got Danny Johnson, Quinn Blanding, Simi Cobbs, and Martez Carter here. All guys that I had high draftable grades on, mid-round grades on. So potentially awesome draft for this Redskins team, and getting some veterans in here, getting guys healthy. It's going to be a fun year for the Redskins. Before we get in the schedule, just a couple guys I did not mention. Jaron Christian, a third-round left tackle pick, really high upside guy out of Louisville. You know, Trent Williams, Morgan Moses not getting any younger, so a guy could develop down the road here as a really good tackle in this league, and he's got a good spot where he can sit and do that. And then also did not mention Vernon Davis here, who in reality could very well just be this team's starting tight end if Jordan Reed doesn't stay healthy. Jeremy Sprinkle there as well. Vernon Davis still surprisingly fast at his age, and a very startable tight end at this point. So that's it for the roster review. Again, the offense coming in at 18th and defense at 22, which is good for 19th overall. They do come in tied for 20th in terms of coach and culture. Could absolutely see by the end of the season we look at this team as a much better coached and a much better culture than that ranking of 20. I do like Jay Gruden quite a bit, actually. I think there's just a lot of moving parts in this organization right now. You got a changing of the guard at quarterback. This team has not been able to get back into the playoffs. You've had a bunch of injuries. So I think they're just trying to recollect themselves. I think that's why they brought in Alex Smith here. And by the end of the year, this could absolutely be one of the better cultures in the entire NFL. So into the schedule now, and this is like any other NFC team, a very grueling schedule. It's actually a very tough start for this Redskins team. So while I am a little higher on this Redskins team, I think ESPN has them 23rd, NFL actually has them maybe one spot higher than me at 18th. I think it's gonna be a very competitive team, but when all is said and done, I'm not expecting anything crazy here. I think this is a playoff team in the AFC most likely, but it's just gonna be tough for this team to put up 9-10 wins in the NFC this year and get into the playoffs. So you start at Arizona, tough place to play, gave them a loss, gave them a win against Indy, and then running off 3 losses against 3 really good NFC opponents there. So starting 1-4, and then kind of recollecting themselves, getting a home game against Dallas. That should be a really fun rivalry game there. And then just kind of trading wins and losses down the stretch. You could really, with this team, flip these wins and losses as you move throughout here. You know, I think a lot of close games for this team. Sometimes they'll pull it out, sometimes they'll come up short. So I'm really excited to hear from the Redskins fans. I want to know what your kind of optimism is for this team. What are your expectations? Do you share the same approach as me that, yeah, this might not be a playoff team, but it's going to be a really fun team to watch at least? Or do you actually think this is a good enough team to make the playoffs? So I'm interested to hear from the Skins fans. If you're not a Skins fan, am I too high on this team? Let me know in the comments below. Again, I am out of the country, so I might not be as responsive as I normally am. But I do hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned a thing or two. If you did, do hit that like button. It helps me out quite a bit. So cheers as always, guys. We'll see you next time.